But where it gets truly next gen, and the one that will probably interface with your careers that you will encounter in this country, then perhaps internationally, is the idea of non-surgical intervention and implantation, allows non-local real-time access that reads out of the brain and writes into the brain, that is updatable, that is retrievable, is reprogrammable, and involves a host of different technologies and sciences to be able to get a vast array of sensing and transmitting electrodes into the brain space on a sub-micro scale, either by using inhalants, injectables, or ingestibles, and then organizing these things into the brain through some use of electromagnetism to establish literally a vast array, as we have, for example, in our SETI program, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, that allows us to beam out and receive back in spaces into a very noisy environment. Similarly here, we've just turned that technology around. It's nothing more than in-QTEL technology that we can now focus into the noisy environment of the brain space to reach into the noise floor of the brain and read out remotely in real time what the brain is doing. And then couple that via big data and various decisional AI technologies into a read program that allows us to essentially interpret brain activity in terms of its cognitive content. And then to turn that around and use those same vast arrays of sensors and transmitters to read in, not to read out from, but also to write into the living brain. In other words, now to influence, if you will, cognition, emotion, and ultimately behavior. Well, folks, there's no getting around about as close to mind reading and mind control as you can get. And the reason for it is that's exactly what we're doing. That's axiomatic. This approaches, intents, and will achieve. Break, break. We're not alone in this pursuit. Let me say it again. We're not alone in this pursuit. I'm not saying that DARPA is playing catch up here, because clearly what we recognize is the activity of this domain literally at the front of the pack. But there's a pack here. One of the reasons that has generated the need for this type of experimentation and or the need for such projects is indeed the worldwide flow towards this level of technological sophistication. Next slide, please. What are the implications? Well, I usually thumb my nose at anybody read a PowerPoint slide, but I can let you read it. We'll field to network input, recording integration, programmability, controllability, acquiring large-scale data repositories that are accessible in real time. And, you know, along with this, some of the implications I have illustrated for you here, although not in verbiage, but rather in cartoon, demonstrates, yeah, there are some real capabilities of the devices, the hardware, and the methods within the living brain. But the implications of this have something of a dystopian spin to them. And in cases, that dystopianism is upon the fact that these types of things could be purloined. It also raises a question, what are others doing and how are they going to use it? And do we need to be so prepared? In other words, prepared by understanding what they're doing, but perhaps more than that, ready, responsive, and perhaps proactive. It's a question I throw out there, but I think clearly this is the tide that is rising. It's a question of whether or not we're going to be able to swim. Next slide, please.